Good morning, welcome back. This is Daybreak and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Fred, coming to you. What do you make of the revelations that Nyakango made before the National Dialogue Committee on Tuesday last week?
Thank you, Ayub. I just hope that as we also witness the examinations being monitored, issues of examination, we shall also witness good results that are full of integrity in due course once the results are out. We have seen the government machinery out there trying to safeguard the integrity of these exams, and we hope that that will translate in the results so that we don't see what we saw in the previous examinations where there were cheating cases. And I wish the students doing the exams the very best of luck. On the issue of control of budget, let's start from how the control of budget gets himself or herself into office. The control of budget was approved by the National Assembly and appointed by the President. To that extent, it means Parliament itself was satisfied that she is qualified with extensive public finance knowledge and that experience as provided for in Article 228 of the Constitution. Number two, budget-making processes are clear. And those budget-making processes must comply with the national values and principles that provides for integrity, honesty, and participation of the people. And budget making is a tool, or rather budgeting is a tool that should allow people to realize their aspirations, rights, and freedoms as per what is required. When the controller of budget appears before National Dialogue Committee, and thanks to NADCO, because that platform has now given Kenyans an opportunity to know what actually happens. We have been talking about budgeted corruption for ages. If you remember, the former anti-graft chief, Philip Kinisu, if you remember, one day came out and said a third of the budget is lost through corruption. And that time, that budget was slightly below 3 trillion. Today it is 3 trillion. If you are to go by what is budgeted today, it means that 1 trillion is getting lost through corruption. If you go further and interrogate the figure, if that figure is true, then it means for every 100 shilling budgeted, 30 shillings is lost through corruption. That is an issue of concern to the people of Kenya. But look, Abdi, Margaret Nyakango has said that the over-budgeting in salaries, and she has used her own salary to check. Because you see, constitutionally, she is mandated to oversee the implementation of this budget. And when my good friend Lotte says that she has failed to produce the quarterly report, to submit the quarterly report to the two houses, I think there's another issue altogether. But she has been brave enough to appear before a committee that is tasked with addressing the issues of concern to the people. Corruption is an issue of concern to the people of Kenya. She has brought this issue to the fore, and she has said that when she questioned, she didn't get any answer. Now, Kenyans are waiting for the answer, and we hope NADCO, because that is on record, this is one of the issues that will be addressed.
Actually, the National Treasury CS is set to appear before the committee today.
So we do hope that that will be addressed. And look at how now this platform called the NADCO is now trying to help the people to address this issue of concern. But Ayub, something that is very interesting is that it is not only Nyakango's salary that was highlighted. She says that the same malpractice was noted across pay scale of senior government state officers. And they project that to a total of 1.5 billion in the financial year 2023-2024, as she was looking at the consolidated fund services. Do you know what that means? That means if this is true, that this money could actually be lost through theft, through systemic theft in budgeting, then we are going to lose taxpayers' money worth 1.5 billion. Money that could have been used in lowering the cost of living. Money that could have been used to fix the issues that Kenyans are now crying about. That is very worrying. But again, Ayub, you know, Kenya's budgeted corruption is a multi-billion scandal. And I agree with Lotte when he says it's not only this financial year or the other financial year, it has been there.
Okay.
What does that tell you? It tells you that this is something that has been happening and we must put a stop to it. What do we need to do? Because that is the question. That issue is a concern. And Kenyans must come out. Because when...
But what is the stoppage mechanism? I mean, Kenyans have vested this power in a group of representatives called members of parliament across the bicameral parliament where Honorable Wandeto, Honorable Mbui and Honorable Lotte sit. And if you are talking about a stoppage of this, how do you stop it without bringing the question of parliament in it?
I agree. Parliament is part of the process. But when some of these issues happen, they happen because there's laxity in one area. So what we are saying is that because this revelation has come, we must now start auditing the budget-making process. Because these figures are overestimated. They are exaggerated. To use Margaret Nyakango's word, they are exaggerated from the initial start. 17.8 million, or is it billion? 17 million, yes. 17.8 million. That was reduced to 10.15 million.
Still which is above our salary.
Still above our annual salary of 9.18 million. That figure must have been flagged by Parliament at some stage in that process. But she has brought it out. So we are not blaming Parliament, but we are saying, who is this person that is interested in exaggerating the figures and to what benefit? That is what we call systemic theft.
Thank you.
Lastly,
okay,
let me finish.
Lastly, okay.
We know, Ayub, that for us to address this issue, we need what we call fiscal discipline right from the start. Remember, there's what we call the principles of public finance. And in the principle of public finance, public money must be used in a certain manner, in a prudent manner, and in lawful manner. That is what is lacking. The fiscal discipline is lacking in this country. And that's why you see, every time there is something to budget, people inflate figures. Every time there's a catastrophe, they inflate figures because there's a percentage that they want to use for theft. This is pure theft. You cannot go beyond what is expected and expect people to just sit and watch. No, it's not going to happen.
And Honorable Wandeto, coming to you, in the midst of the challenges also acknowledged by the President we are facing economically as a country, and yesterday also the same upheld by the National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah of the growing concerns over the state of the economy, the austerity measures not fully implemented, and also the taxation and KRS under collection by 79 billion in the first quarter, June, September this year. What then can Parliament do here? And then does it not also clearly bring to the fore the question about the need for prudence, and if you can save on these monies that can be channeled to the other sectors of the economy, which can lead to an economic growth and the positive impact that we need as a country?
Ayub, that is true. And actually here you are preaching to the converted. We have said time and again that for a country, our country is a developing country. We do not have these resources to use and to steal. We only have enough resources to use. We have an ambitious program for our children. We have, we want to support education. That's consuming, I think, 650 billion. We have public debt issues that needs to be repaid. We need to build roads. We need to provide water to our people and all the various government programs. And so it is very, very important that every shilling of taxes collected in this country is used. So it is very sad when we hear that the country only maybe gets 70 cents value for every shilling. I think that's what Okango was saying when he said that 30%. I do not have the actual figures, but we cannot all run away from the fact that we know that a substantial or a big part of public money is misused. I think, Ayub, the important thing is to know that corruption is not perpetuated by governments. Corruption is perpetuated by individuals. Those individuals can be in government or can be outside government. What we need to do is to have a very deliberate effort in terms of fighting corruption. And Parliament has to be at the forefront, and I agree. And as legislators, we have to not only address the issues of corruption, but also look at where laws need to be strengthened so that we can, one, restore public confidence of our people, and number two, how we can progressively cushion our people in terms of all the various crises that they go. And so as Parliament resumes, after the short recess that we had, we hope that some of these things are going to come to the floor of the House and they can be discussed. None of us is running away from the fact that we have a cost of living crisis in this country. That needs to be addressed, and it needs to be balanced. Because I know everybody rushes to say, oh, we should stop this tax, we should stop this, we should not do this. It needs to be balanced with the needs of the country. Even as we go through, the economic difficulties that we are going, we need to pay for our roads. We have roads that have been contracted, and those contractors that need to be paid. We have debt that we need to service, and we have teachers that we need to pay, and all the other things that we need to do. So how do we strike a careful balance to ensure that we move the country forward, but at the same time we also support our people? And that's why the government has come up with some of the programs that I know we've discussed on this show in the past, from basically supporting our farmers, to produce more, with the subsidized fertilizer, support, employing more teachers so that we can be able to support the education sector, and all the other various programs. You've seen the president crisscross the country, go out of the country many times, basically to be able to, get the economy going and, address the various challenges and bottlenecks that we had in the economy. And so we remain hopeful that we are passing through a dark cloud, but we see a bright future. And what we urge our people is to continue being, just a little bit patient as we fix a lot of the crises Ayub, that we are going through, are also not necessarily of our own making. Actually, when you look at what is happening in this country, we've also got a lot of external shocks. This new Israeli-Hamas war would also add another layer of complexity and shocks to the economy. And we are really, really hoping that we can be able to go through this dark cloud. Every day, the government is working hard, the president is working hard, Parliament is working hard. And it is good we tell our people, we are for them.
Thank you.
We are not against.
Governments are for the people, and therefore lies the accountability question. Because we always had a government. There has never been any vacuum at any given time since 1963. Honorable Mbowe, will this then open a door of accountability? And how do you think then that the budget-making process and largely the cost of corruption in this country can be addressed?
Yeah, thank you. First, I want to confirm that once Parliament receives, because this is something that is now out in the open, we shall obviously receive a report from the Controller of Budget, and we shall interrogate that report thoroughly with a view of ensuring that if there's anyone who is culpable, because this issue of every time budgets are being made, people seem to imply that there may have been some errors. I think this is something that needs to be taken seriously. Remember a situation where the Treasury paid out some money. I mean, at that time we thought it was about 21 billion for some projects, dam projects, I think Imwarer and Aro. And then someone came out and said it wasn't 21 billion, it was actually only 7 billion. And these having been released when there was absolutely, even the feasibility studies had not even been done. The people occupying the land on which the dams were supposed to be built, and one of them particularly, had no clue there was a dam to be built. It was actually part of it was going to take up forestry, land, and the forestry department didn't even know. So there is a serious crisis, and I think what we need to do is let us hold people to account and hope that even our EACC, DCI, DPP can help us, and the judiciary, because even that case of Kimarere Naro, he got nowhere. I think all those that were charged, eventually at the end of the day, it was like there was really no issue. So for me, I think this thing is not just Parliament. The executive needs to put its house in order. Parliament, of course, we will do our bit, the best way possible. Okay. But we also expect the judiciary to support us, because the reason why corruption, Ayub, is a major problem in this country is because other than one or two cases, the majority of the very corrupt individuals get away with it, And so if it's easy to actually steal public funds and get away with it. And that's why it keeps happening. The minute it becomes difficult, the minute you realize that if you touch public funds, you'll end up in jail, that is when you will see these things stopping. So we need our judiciary to also support us very, very seriously. I know sometimes... But
Honorable Mbui, the judiciary, makes determinations based on the threshold of evidence before the courts. That's exactly. It just doesn't work in isolation. And it's what the former Chief Justice Emeritus David Kinani Maraga said: if you bring us hawkish cases, then it won't take us time before we quash them and throw them out of the window. Exactly,
and that's why you notice when I spoke, I talked about several organs of state. I talked about the judiciary, but before the judiciary, there is a EACC who carries out investigation. There is the DCI that assists with the investigations, and there is also the DPP that prepares the prosecution files. So basically, all these bodies have to. Look, money is lost. We all know money is lost. 7 billion is lost. But there is no case to answer. How is that possible?
Which 7 billion are you talking about?
The one on Kimarere and Naro Dam.
Okay, and
yes.
Which is a matter in a court of law. But how do you cherry pick then? Because that would be unfair, because you have mentioned the executive as a problem also in this space. And hear this: in 2021 January, President Uhuru Kenyatta then said that we lose 2 billion Kenya shillings a day. The President of the Republic of Kenya saying that mathematically is about 700 billion Kenya shillings, 720 billion Kenya shillings a year. Talking about all this and in that isolation of picking the Deputy President, then William Ruto, and leaving out the President, who both are tied at the hip at the executive level, seriously, it points to a governance problem in this country of an apparent failure by the executive in ensuring that they have not sealed off the financial leakages and leading to prudence of resources. How then as Parliament do you hold them to account, because you sit at a point of responsibility in questioning the same executive that you have talked about?
Ayub, you'll be surprised the number of reports that Parliament passes that that clearly give direction and say that investigations have to be carried. Remember, Parliament does an investigation and gives a report. And in the report which we pass in the House, many of these reports show that there is people who are culpable. But it is not, Parliament is not a judge and jury by itself. Parliament will only give a report. But these reports end up in the offices that I have talked about, the EACC, the DCI's office, and of course we expect the public prosecutor to be the one to take it to court. Unfortunately, a lot of these cases end up going nowhere. And I'm saying this, that yes, Kenyans are losing a lot of money. And yes, Parliament is aware. And yes, we do reports. But we cannot do anything beyond that. Even some of these cases, look at this one that was raised by Margaret Nyakango. Yes, we will discuss it and we'll find out who is it that gave these fictitious figures, if at all they are there. But at the end of the day, and we'll say that somebody has to be held to account. I can tell you almost certainly that nobody will end up...
When she reached out to the National Treasury, hang on, because I'll come to Honorable later. Responsibility must lie somewhere, because we are not operating in isolation, Honorable Mbui, Honorable Wandeto, Fred Okango, and Honorable Lote. She said that she has reached out to the National Treasury, but answers have not been provided. But members of Parliament, you parliamentarians, can summon the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary to provide answers on this matter.
Ayub, I want you to understand that we do our bit as Parliament almost always. Let me give you a direct example. About a week or 2 weeks ago, I raised a matter on the floor of the House about the junior secondary school that is opening next year, and a task force report was presented, and we are not too sure exactly which subjects our children will do come January next year. And I said we are coming to the tail end of the school term, and we require the ministry to be able to give us these figures so we can discuss them on the floor of the House, so that by January our children who are going to JSS, we know whether the subjects will be 7, 8, 10, 20, and which ones they will be. And the report I was given, which was done overnight, says that yes, we are intending to reduce some of the subjects. It doesn't name the subjects, but that's a report from the executive. So unfortunately, Parliament, we keep asking, and we'll get reports, and sometimes they are half-baked, and that's why even these budgetary issues, some of these stories like the one raised by the Controller of Budget, it's a half-baked information. It means that the information that was presented to the committee of the House was that this is the amount of money that is required to pay salaries. Remember, it is not Parliament that pays the salaries. SRC is involved. There is a Public Service Commission. So if you're given figures and told these are the salaries, that is the figure you work with. And that's where the problem is. It's actually really vested in the executive. And that's why we are saying we will interrogate, we will give our reports, we will give our recommendations, which we always do. Unfortunately, that's where the power of Parliament ends, at the point of recommending. But you can't go beyond that.
But also important to know that there's a Parliamentary Budget Office which also advises you parliamentarians on some of these economic issues. Yes, Honorable Ote.
Well, thank you. I think Kenyans have been taken for a ride, well, for quite far too long. You remember what the president, the former president Uhuru said about the 2 billion shillings every day. It is just a talk. The president says it, and there is no investigation, there are no arrests. You remember the computer era during the last regime, where billions of shillings, just by a show of a computer, was actually disappeared. A lot of money, and Kenyans made a lot of noise, and we were promised that we're going to see heads roll. There was no head that was rolling. We've actually seen the COVID billionaires. We talk about it here, we sensationalize it. We know the people that have actually stolen the money, but there's nothing that took place. And we are always tired. I think Kenyans are tired. I am tired to be told that there are no stones that are going to be left unturned. I don't know. I think we should have turned stones in this country and return them, because there is nothing that has come out of it. I would want us to say one thing about the role of Parliament as per the Article 95 of the Constitution. And I want to appreciate what the parliamentarians here are saying. We are doing our role. But then the role of Parliament is not to pay salaries. The role of Parliament is not to set salaries. The role of Parliament is to look at those reports as per the technical expertise. If SRC has approved and say that is the salary of the Controller of Budget for this matter, then Parliament will just say, yes, that is approved. And then it is Parliament that will sit to look at the reports after the expenditure has taken place. And Parliament looked mainly at 3 reports, and this is what Parliament is operating on. First of all, the first report is the report of the Controller of Budget. If the Controller of Budget give us report like she's done now, and I hope that when she was at the NDC, she also presented a report, because that was the last day that we expected a report, so that we can interrogate the report. I hope this report has come clear as it is, so that parliamentarians can sit. Today, I sit in a committee on environment. We are actually having a 3-day interrogation of our supplementary budget, and we are calling every head of department to come and give us the report. And basically means we are doing our role. But if these reports are not substantive enough, we as parliamentarians are actually handicapped to be able to know exactly what it is. So I'll ask the Controller of Budget to do her report without fear and ensure that Parliament get it as it is.
But Honourable Lete, I mean, you seem to be putting Parliament and seem to be diverting away from what the law dictates. I mean, the Constitution of Kenya allows Parliament to amend the national budget. I mean, you work through committees.
Yes.
And the Budget and the Appropriations Committee is the one that presents to you. And you have an advice from a technical team at the Parliamentary Budget Office. This power is bestowed upon you by the Constitution of Kenya and the people of Kenya, who are the sovereign power holders in this country. And you seem to be now saying that you are just expressly rubber stamping everything that comes from the National Treasury.
That is not what I've said. I've said we depend on the reports that are coming from the technical people. You know, like Boys say, we are not the one that appropriate salaries. We are not the one that set salaries. So if it comes to before us to say that this is the amount of salaries that is accepted, Parliament will have to look through it and ensure that that goes as it is.
What if you? What then if Parliament identified anomalies as pointed out by the Controller of Budget?
When an anomaly like this one, and the reason why I asked initially, as the Controller of Budget raised this matter before, and I think it did not. That's the reason why she's even now referring to 2022, 2023, that there was 700 million that was lost. Now, she's now saying, this year we expect 1.5 billion to be lost. That is the report I'm saying. If that report is given to Parliament, those are the reports. And I'm actually was trying to show the kind of 3 reports that Parliament depend on. One of the reports was the report from the Controller of Budget. The other report is the quarterly budget and technical review reports. Those reports, when they don't come, or when they come faulty, like Buya said, then we are incapable. But if they do come properly, I think Parliament has been able to do this. We have been able to shift budgets here and there, depending on how we technically are advised by the technical team. And the last report that Parliament depends on is the annual report of the various state agencies, which we are looking at, which I've alluded to. So if these reports are brought technically well advised, Parliament is able to do its role. And the reason why I'm actually saying, probably the Controller of Budget has actually gone to a place that she is not supposed to. She's supposed not to, it's not the technical place where she's supposed to present these reports. Let her report come to Parliament. But I'm also of the opinion that there is a capacity gap at the Controller of Budget's office. Because if you look at the 7 roles, in the 7 roles of the Controller of Budget, one of them is oversight. The second one is controlling our budgets. So if she realizes that last year we lost 700 million in inflated salaries, she should have actually controlled and stopped, because before budgets are expended, she's supposed to sign for it. Where was she when the 700 million was being expended? The other one is reporting. The other one is even advising and saying, Parliament, listen, we've seen there is money that has been put, inflated. Please, Parliament, can you take charge? Has that advice come to Parliament? I don't think it is. The other one is investigating. They should have investigated. Even now, before it goes to ESCC, I expect the Controller of Budget to investigate where the 700 million inflated budget was for last financial year.
Thank you. Yeah. And one critical aspect you have mentioned is reporting, which she did, though, when she appeared before the National Dialogue Committee at the Bomas of Kenya. Fred, yes, please.
I think we should not dwell much on the issue of salaries alone, because if you are to go by the Auditor General report alone, you will notice that there's so much that is happening, even in the counties. But I think let's remember what the head of public service told the people of Kenya the other day, Felix Kosgei, that the government, Ruto's government, would want to commission a study to establish whether the claims by President Uhuru that 2 billion shillings is lost every day is true or false. And they say that there's already a donor who is interested in funding, willing to fund that study. How we wish that that study is done and the truth is known. But if you look at all these issues, on Thursday of this month, there's expectation that William Ruto will be addressing a joint
sitting of the House.
And one of the constitutional duties that he must do is to report to the public on the progress that has been made in the realization of the national values and principles. And therein, there is what is called integrity, there is what is called public participation, there's what we call, honesty and all those. And I started by saying the budget-making process. And for us in Azimio, we believe that that budget process, making process, must abide by the principles and values and national values. So if it did not, then that's why you are realizing that today the Controller of Budget is identifying and revealing issues that ought to have been addressed earlier. Secondly, there is this issue of wastages. And wastages come in so many ways. And wastage in public funds is a form of corruption. Go and look at the pending bills.
Okay.
Why is it that today, as we speak, we still have huge sums in billions of pending bills, while these government agencies, institutions, county governments receive their money that is meant for the same. Why? It's because of budgeted corruption. So this issue of budgeted corruption must be addressed in a manner that does not only affect, or rather focus on the Office of the Control of Budget, but the entire national government and the county government. And lastly, we know for sure that the issue of corruption in this country is a big issue. It's an issue that when those who are in power today were campaigning, they told us, because the issue of corruption, they Christianized at that time that it was called, state capture. And they promised in what they call the plan, my good friend Wandeto and team, that in 30 days, they'll form a judicial commission to address state capture, which also was entangled with corruption. That has not happened. It fell flat. So when people come and say they are fighting corruption, they are concerned about loss of public money, they are concerned about wastages, those are pure lies. That is what Honorable Mbui call showbiz. It is not going to happen until such a time the Honorable Ruto's government come out and say, and I expect Honorable Ruto in his address to Parliament this Thursday to tell the people of Kenya that during or since he got into office, the following corruption scandals have been highlighted, and these are the actions that have been taken. The following money, the amount of money have been identified to have been wasted through corruption. The following people have been, kicked out of office because of concluded investigative processes of due process as a result of corruption. If that can happen, then we will see a bold president who is actually interested and willing to fight corruption. But if that does not happen, then we will not see any, because in his regime, we have seen some mega scandals. The media has reported that. Remember the oil. Remember the issue of KEMSA.
Of which action was taken against KEMSA?
I am saying that in his report, he should actually be bold enough and tell people that this is what I've done to address the issue of corruption as an element of integrity in the national values and principles, because the Constitution requires him to do so. But if we just go there and give nice speeches, how we are doing 1, 2, 3, how we are developing the country from the bottom to up, that is not going to fix it. We must fix it at the point of need. And the point of need has been identified by Nyakango, that in budgeting, they are actually budgeting for corruption.
Thank you.
And they have said in salaries specifically, they are inflating, and to use our words, they are exaggerating.
Thank you. And to be fair to him, on KEMSA, on the 15th of May, the president took an action, and the PS was relieved of her duties at the Ministry of Health, and also other officials who were sent home packing. But on
to see more.
But on the question of governance, I'm Fred.
Yes.
Of course, you speak for the opposition. But is it also fair from generally governance perspective, the principles, as you've mentioned, of good governance, constitutionalism, and the rule of law? That, for example, in the previous government, President Uhuru Kenyatta, regarding the COVID scandal, the KEMSA scandal, even issued a 21-day ultimatum to bring those who are found guilty to book. There was also the question of he himself, as the head of state, said that we lose 2 billion Kenya shillings a day without action, or even assisting the investigative agencies. Even as you accuse the government of the day, how then do you think this general lack of governance, good willingness to address corruption, even in the previous administration, is addressed in Kenya?
And that's why I said corruption is a big issue in this country, not only to this government. It has been, it will forever be if not addressed. And to be fair, I have not accused William Ruto's government of anything. I have just said the Constitution mandates him today to report to the public through a joint sitting of Parliament the progress that he has made in addressing the issues of national value and principles of governance. That is what Kenyans want to see. Number two, they have said themselves through the head of public service that they are going to commission a study to establish whether what President Uhuru said of losing 2 billion per day is false or true. What we want to see is that study taking shape, and report is coming out to the public to establish that. But going by what we are seeing, it could actually be true that the government loses a lot of money per day. First, start from budgeting.
Thank you.
If going by that alone, budgeting alone, already 1.5 billion at a go. You know, these are issues that we must address. And let me tell you, issues of governance are not issues to joke around with, because institutions keep losing that public confidence. Parliament, there is erosion of public confidence in Parliament. Executive, the legislature, all of them.
Thank you.
Because we have not addressed the biggest elephant in the room called corruption. And I said corruption is systemic. It used to be systematic. Today it is systemic. It is wholesome.
Thank you. Your Honourable Wandeto.
Yes.
On this point of generally addressing this point, because it isn't the first time, we had EACC in 2016 saying we lose a third of the country's budget to waste through corruption. Nyakango's revelations, in regards to our revelations, says that budgeted corruption is a colloquial term. It has to be supported by data and statistics. What I have put before you today is the first set of data for you to believe that there is such term. It is for you to decide how you want to go ahead with what you have and the enough data that I have provided to prove the term budgeted corruption does exist. Action needs to be taken here, and we have power vested in investigative agencies that ought to be undertaking all this. Do you foresee a change in all this question of corruption? Because now it has been laid bare. There is nothing, it's no longer shrouded in secrecy or mystery. It's now clear.
Corruption has never been shrouded in secrecy and mystery. You can ask any pedestrian, any passerby in this country, and he can tell you very detailed information about corruption in this country. What is important is what we are going to do about the information that we've received. And Fred raised a point which I would like maybe just to add and say, for the Kenya Kwanza government, the good thing is that the tone at the top has been very, very strong. President Ruto has, in the last few months, since he took office, been very categorical about the fight on corruption. And has pronounced himself on very, very many times that as a country we have to move forward, we have to stem corruption, we have to stem wastage. I saw him as late as yesterday talking about a fictitious list of land beneficiaries in Idongo-Kudu. And those are very, very positive statements coming from the president. The president is saying, you know what, you just don't, bring a list here and pay fictitious people. I'm keeping an eye on what everyone is doing. But what needs to happen, and I think this is to your question, Ayub, is very, very quickly, how do we act on these statements? Unfortunately, in this country, despite very good intentions at the top, the president cannot be the jury, the judge, and the executioner. We have a constitution, and that constitution, which we fought so hard for, the 2010 constitution, has stipulated the role of everybody. Mm-hmm. You and me, or even these legislators here, and Robert has done a good job at talking about this. We can unearth corruption. We will prepare reports. But someone else needs to act on these reports. Where I feel the cookie crumbles in our fight against corruption, and I'm sorry to call these institutions out, is around our investigation agencies, who have been accused time and again of not being thorough in terms of how they conduct their investigations. Because many times we've seen cases dismissed for lack of evidence, despite the hype. A case comes up and there's a lot of hype. Even those ones who have been caught literally with their hands inside the cookie jar, somehow they're able to wipe their hands and say, you know what, it wasn't me, even when there is glaring evidence. The other institution that I would like to call to order is our judiciary. And this is mostly on the speed. Whatever our judiciary requires, let us provide it so that we can be able to expeditiously conclude corruption cases. When something takes too long,
okay,
it sets a mood in the country whereby anybody who wants to perpetuate in this, corruption in this country can almost prepare adequately for the aftermath of the corruption case. The script used to go something like this, Ayub. You have a corruption scandal.
Yeah.
You are picked up on a Friday. Okay? Of course,
spot on
because you are a
Monday.
rich man, you'll be taken to Muthaiga police station, where we are told possibly you are not in a cell. You are possibly relaxing in the OCPD's office. Okay? On Monday, we take you to court. You have prepared good lawyers, and you are released on a 1 million shillings bond. The case drags for the next infinite number of years in court. After all the drama and all the publicity, the judge says there was no evidence. And actually, when you follow, you actually see that someone dropped the ball somewhere along the way.
Okay.
So institutional reform, the reforms on the institutions that are supposed to fight corruption is something that we must take seriously. And I hope this has come in the National Dialogue Committee, that for once as a country, because remember, Ayub, 13 years ago, as a country, we imagined ourselves as a new nation, and we bequeathed on ourselves a new constitution, which has done fairly well for us. Democratic space has increased.
Thank you.
We have institutions such now as devolution and everything, and we did a good job. Why can't we now say in this dialogue committee, maybe even the single most important thing we want to address is how, as a country, we finally seem to have slayed the dragon of corruption and move our
Thank you.
forward.
What's the way forward, Honorable Robert Mbui?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would propose, as my colleague has said, is that we need to ensure that our institutions work, because the Constitution of Kenya has so many institutions. I mean, we are also not lacking in laws, but the problem is the implementation. Because you notice, Ayub, that as long as we keep talking about situations like this issue of budgeted corruption, even Treasury will keep having problems raising revenue for running this government, because you notice that, the recent report also shows that Treasury was unable to raise as much money as they were supposed to. Because Kenyans also are, they're grappling with, high cost of living, and at the same time, struggling with the cost of almost everything, and then they're being, again, seriously burdened with excessive taxes. So when you do that, and then they realize that that money is also being stolen, obviously it discourages all of us. So I think we need to have our investigative agencies be serious, because it's not just, I mean, if you can actually count the number of corruption cases that these organs of state have won in this country since independence, very, very few. And yet, almost every day, there is a case after case. So I think it's important that they do their job. But we as Parliament also, I can tell you, we are going to also step up, and we'll make sure that any case that comes to our, to our concern, we'll make serious recommendations for prosecution.
Yes, Honorable Ote.
Well, thank you. I think, like Mbui said, we do not lack institutions or laws. What we need is action. We really need action, and probably what I'll add is we need to probably add a layer of investigations, so that should a case drag to court and this person is released, or the corrupt persons are released, I think we need to investigate why they have been released. Because sometimes we know people who are corrupt, we have actually seen them go to court, and because of their influences, they get out. So we need to investigate why are they getting out. I think, just like Mandeto said, there could be some monies going around that allow people to be released, even when it is known in the public knowledge that these are thieves of public funds. The other thing is, let's look at the silver lining on the clouds, because corruption has been in this country for a long period of time. I would want to ask you a question. When, in May, the president releases or relieved of duty of the peers, was it fighting corruption, or was it a public showbiz? For me, I think it was fighting corruption. It was actually mentioning and sending signals to every other public officer that should you be found in the jar taking public funds, you relieve of your duty. As late as last month, the president publicly in Gilgil released or relieved of duty of 25 officers of the KFS, Kenya Forest Services. He actually sacked them. Is it fighting corruption or showbiz? For me, I think it is fighting corruption, so that everybody start to know that the president is not just talking, but taking action.
Thank you.
We've seen that in NHIF. We've even seen it in the systemic privatization of the port. That was another corruption. That was people were trying to privatize the port so that they could make advantage of it, but the president reversed it. We've also seen that in the Nogokundu yesterday list of fictitious beneficiaries. So I think for me, the president is taking the lead in terms of ensuring that action is taking place. What Kenyans need to do is not to celebrate when a corrupt person is left. Because I have seen corrupt people coming out and Kenyans are clapping, yeah, our person has been left. Because sometimes we are corrupt individually, but we want to sensationalize the issue to be a community matter. So that if I am taken in because of my corruption charges, my community will come with me and say they are only victimizing our son. It is not about me as a community, but it's me as a corrupt individual. So I will want to actually see action in all the state agencies, and I want to allow the president for taking action. We have actually seen 1, 2, 3 things that is done within this 1 year that has actually sent signals that the president is serious about fighting corruption.
And the seriousness, however, power lies with other institutions of government who exercise that in regards to the dictates of the law. Fred, we are unfortunately out of time. Allow me to view the feedback of the viewers. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422. At Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir, here is what you are saying on X, Twitter, formerly Twitter. And this coming from Nungu Wainana. He says inflated budget, odious debt and dubious pending bills are all connected to budgeted theft by government officials. Executive through the Kenya National Treasury initiates the theft, a budget formulation stage, and Parliament approves at the budget adoption stage. Honorable Lilian Soye says, William Samoei Ruto is the first president in my life to actually do something tangible to disrupt the graft. Next is Kenya Minde. He says the government creates a conducive environment for corruption to happen without any action being taken. The buck stops with the government. If punitive measures were taken, then corruption would not happen. Bob Otieno Owino says the report showed part of 2 billion Kenya shillings which former President Uhuru Kenyatta is being, according to him, lost daily, and the President William Ruto. He has given all institutions free hand to look at the loopholes, and results have started, especially with the control of budget. Babu Michel K says, with the control of budget's revelations, I can now start survey believing that the issues that have been raised by Okia Omtata and Jimmy Wanjigi about budgeted corruption and how public money is stolen through the treasury, it's very disturbing. Next is Dixon _Luo Chase. I disagree with the legislature there. Parliament isn't just budget making, but also an oversight body. Will they now call Dr. Nyakango to shed more light on these issues, also where the Auditor General and the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission? Brian Chemwa says the Treasury can coordinate with the central bank to control the money supply by influencing interest rates and the amount of money in circulation. They can help control inflation. We can prevent inflation in terms of salaries through economic policies. Remy Butia says government budgetary corruption is a serious problem and mechanism used in order to funnel public resources. Government budgetary secrecy affects the social contract and exchange process between consumers, the citizens in this case, and the service providers, the government. The last one from J.M. Musoma says, talking of the Kenya National Examinations Council reforms, we may need a change of guard at the Ministry of Education. That the PS has held the same docket for a decade, served under 5 CSs and 2 presidents. We can't do the same thing the same way and expect different results. Thank you so much, members of Parliament, honorable members. On my immediate right is Titus Lote, Kacheliba, member of Parliament. Your time is all appreciated, albeit short. Thanks, Robert Mbui, honorable member of Parliament representing Kadhiani constituency, Geoffrey Wandetu, Tetu, member of Parliament, and Fred Okango, the Azimio Coalition Secretary. Your time is all appreciated.
Did you notice that on the best 150 MPs, we have 2 of them on this panel this morning?
Which constitutes a majority?
Mbui and...
Actually on the top 10, we have 2.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now, The revelations by the Controller of Budget are hard to comprehend in many ways. It laid bare a budgeting cycle vulnerable to corruption, lacking oversight on the part of Parliament, a consistent culture of corruption, incompetence and patronage in successive administration, an existing design perpetuating that culture, and a lacking explanation on how inclusions were made of non-existing positions at the Office of the Controller of Budget. Thanks for watching Daybreak. Up next is Sporty Monday with the quartet of Isaac Swila, Steve Shitera, Fred Arocho and Zita Jimoi. And the guns went silent in northeastern part of England. Not happy, not for me and Isaac Swila. Don't know about the Monday Blues of Steve Shitera. The Blues will be travelling over to north part of London to face Tottenham tonight in London Derby clash. And the Red Devils have recovered revival at Craven Cottage, overcoming Fulham in western part of London. Fred Arocho and Zita Jimoi will be joyous about that, and they are all on and up with that Sporty Monday up next day on the broadcast. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday morning here on the broadcast. Good morning.